Welcome to the Existential Empath Podcast. My name is Tanya, and I am an intuitive empath. My intention is to share valuable tools and techniques that I have learned so you can tap into your own inner healer naturally and intuitively.
Welcome back, everyone. I am really excited about today's guest. So, going along with the theme of how our thoughts create our reality, I have a guest with me here today. His name is James Pearson, and James is an emotional guide and an author, and he helps people connect more fully with their emotions. And so, we are going to talk about today how what we think we create. So, welcome, James. I'm really excited to have you on my show.
Hey, I'm really excited to be here, Tanya. Thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. So let's dive more into this, because a lot of my shows have revolved around this as well. How our internal world creates our external world. So, how does that work? What are your thoughts around that? And how can we shift our internal reality that will kind of reflect out to shape our external reality?
Wow, that is probably the biggest question I think I've ever been asked. So I will do my best to kind of give a potted overview then, I guess. So I'm very inspired by the work of a psychologist called Carl Jung. And he has produced many, many theories. And he had a bit of a wobble where he was doubting a lot of things. And he went off and he wrote a book called The Red Book. And it was very influenced by sort of dreams and visions and things. And I think ultimately he decided that there were so many aspects of ourselves that we needed to sort of like kill off. It got a bit brutal and a bit violent at times. And we need to kind of separate these aspects of our beings that kind of come to control us over the decades in our lives. And I tried to simplify that down and thought, well, let's look at like ego and identity, because I think they are two very controlling forces. And certainly in my own experience, I think I've struggled with a dominant ego. Mm-hmm. And I think it's come from a place where everything in my past, if I trace this back and I kind of look through the history of my life, everything in my past has kind of created an ego that isn't necessarily serving my identity, right? It's serving other people's, or what I've come to understand is what I believe other people want from James, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So came to really be living in a bit of a funk and a bit lost about who I really was, and definitely fearful of kind of self-expression. Mm-hmm. And so much of my true identity has kind of been hiding in a cave for like the last 20 years from all of the kind of repressive, oppressive sort of forces in society that kind of make us need to conform to belong, if that kind of makes sense.
Absolutely.
So I think in order to kind of like manifest a new reality, it definitely starts inside, and it starts by working out, who am I? Yeah. I think that's the killer question.
It is the killer question.
Who am I? And it might be a process of kind of writing that down on a sheet of paper, statements like, I am this, I believe in this. And then trying to find the strength to bring that out in the open so that other people can start to accept it. And I think once other people, or you have the experience of other people accepting who you want to be, mm-hmm. then I think that's when the healing process begins.
It does. And I think too, to even caveat to that is we have to accept that, right? Because I know with me, it was fully. Like, I went through a long marriage, and I turned into someone that I didn't know who I was, and so when I got out of that relationship, I had to take many years to try to figure out, who am I again? And then when I would start to come out with who I was, people were kind of like, who's this
Who is this
person?
person?
So I was
Right.
recreating myself, but really I was I was actually going back to who I was, but it appeared to me that I was recreating myself because I had created a different person within that relationship. And I think we can do that, whether it's a relationship or a job or whatever it may be, we kind of can mold ourselves into who we think others want us to be, rather than standing in our own authenticity, in our own right genuinity, and holding that power for ourselves.
And if we're not paying attention, it almost happens automatically.
It does. And then you look back and you're like, who was that person?
Yeah, exactly.
And that can be really scary. And so, I think that, the importance of self-reflection, and you talk a lot about this on your Instagram page. I was kind of diving in to some of your reels, and I'm dabbling into this a lot. And I recognize it mostly when I'm being triggered, and I will sit back and kind of reflect on, number one, where did this trigger begin? Was this something in my childhood? Is this something that I might be picking up from someone else as an empath? Or is this, something I need to address in this moment? So I think just sitting with my trigger is my way of one way of doing self-reflection. So can you talk about that a little bit? What is the importance of self-reflection, and how can that help us heal?
Right. Okay. So again, back to my man, Carl Jung. I was very interested in this process of separation and kind of duality of states. And I just kind of felt, well, what would happen to me if I took my hands off the wheel a little bit? And I think this is explored in so many different ways, but it boils down to control. Like, much of our lives, we like to have both hands on the wheel, driving forwards at full velocity, and it's like,
with a bloody grip on that wheel.
I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna do this thing. And I thought, well, fun, because it isn't as dangerous as in a car, to let go of the wheel and allow that kind of process to just happen around me and to me. And so I sort of developed this theory that I felt something inside. I wanted to write a book. I wanted to get almost like a journal of this experience out. I didn't know why or how this was going to work, but I came to the conclusion that if I stopped wondering about what to write about and let other people direct and influence what I was writing about, then something else could happen.
Interesting.
It's almost like if you want to live a different life, then do the things necessary to live that different life kind of idea. And a lot of Carl Jung's stuff that I was reading was talking about the collective unconscious, the collective psyche, and this idea that everybody throughout the world is kind of tapping into, or can tap into, this kind of collective identity, if you like, this collective understanding of emotions and feelings. And I thought, well, it would be kind of fun to just kind of approach random people who I didn't know and just say, hey, how are you feeling today? Can you share with me how you're feeling in a single word? Just sum it up. And the responses have been amazing, from single words, which have been so expressive. Some people we just got talking and instantly became firm friends. Other people have, expressed how difficult it is to compress all of our emotional jigsaw into a single word.
Exactly.
And that's an amazing, idea in itself. So these words are coming in, and I started to channel them by using them to write what I've called meditations. So I'm basically filling in the blanks and trying to be as uninfluential to the meaning as possible. But obviously it has to be filtered through whatever my experience is in the moment.
Of course.
But the feelings are coming from somewhere else. They're not coming from me. And as a result, I've had so many moments of what can only be described as kind of pure inspiration, where expressions or things have come out of nowhere. I haven't necessarily created them. I've created them with other people.
That's cool.
And they've dug a bit deeper. Like, I think we have a level. If you're self-reflective, you can go down, 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 and then you reach a point. and you reach a point of like the base of your understanding, like the bottom of your own personal abyss, if you like. And this stuff goes further because you're using almost like the power of more people to go into places that you didn't know existed in your soul.
That's fascinating.
And so it's like somebody shining a torch around in the darkness there, kind of like, oh, look, there's this little cave
hey,
here.
look,
Let's
you
go
missed
explore and see what this means. Exactly. And so that's become kind of the core of my writing process, and a lot of the content for reels and the information that I share. And I obviously share the meditations as well.
That's really cool. And I think, I've even started to dive into how everyone around us is a holographic image of us, which then just blows my mind, because when you meet someone and then I'm like, my subconscious is projecting this person, into my life. And so if they're triggering me or bringing things up that I need to heal, it's just another aspect of me that's showing me or shining light on me. And it's, Greg Braden, I like his work too, as well as Carl Jung. And so he talks a lot about that, the divine matrix and how things kind of get projected back onto us. And so it's like, when you really start to try to grasp that concept, it can be very expanding, because you literally look at every single interaction that you have with everyone, and you can look at it as an opportunity to grow or a healing experience, or, however you want to look at it. But I think that's amazing that you went around and just started asking people that question. Did people have a hard time categorizing it into one word?
Yes. And I will say I had a hard time even beginning it, because I was riddled with self-doubt. I thought people are going to think this is nuts.
Like, who's this creeper?
They're just going to kind of I know, right? It's going to kind of laugh at me, or something weird was going to happen. But then I remembered that the whole point of it was to step aside. And once I'd got that, like a firm grasp on that, it was easy. And then they started flowing in. Most people respond.
That's amazing. And I think it's breaking down that wall. And I joke, because when I went to New York City the first time, I went on the subway and everyone is very closed off. It was just, no one talks to anyone. Everyone stays in their space. Well, my friend and I had Skittles. So we were spreading the rainbow around on the subway. This is pre-COVID, long time ago. And people were they were lighting up. They were just like excited and happy. And it was like we were bringing that childlike nature back to the subways of New York City. And I do feel it's like many of us have become hardened, and because of our emotions and our thoughts. And when someone approaches you like that on the street or wherever it may be, immediately your guard kind of goes up, and you're like, what is his motive? What does this person want? So were you feeling that energy at first? Maybe even within yourself, you were like, okay, I feel a little guarded just going up to this person. How did it start out when you first started doing this experiment?
I think definitely you feel, who am I going to ask? There's a sense of sort of, how do I even get started with something like this? What's the messaging? You start to think about all the kind of minutiae of it. Like, what are the right words to say? What's the format of the perfect message? How do you get people to respond? And I think once you walk away from all that control, and you're just like, I think what you said earlier is really kind of important. And it's certainly an aspect of this. And that's that whenever you interact with somebody, there's two instances of energies that kind of come together to create an instance of that moment.
I love that.
If your energy's right, and the other person kind of absorbs your energy rather than reflecting it, then that creates that kind of beautiful instance of this is going to work.
I love that.
I think it's kind of like the energy that you come in with totally informs the outcome, unless you're connecting with the wrong person. Exactly,
because the universe is always harmonizing and balancing. So it's like, if one person's at one frequency and another person's at a different frequency, there's trying to be a harmonization and a balance there. And that's why it can, if one person is, at a very expanded frequency and another one's at a very kind of closed off frequency, then there could be some strife there, a little bit of disconnect that happens until the harmonization happens. And it's funny you say this, because I did this experiment when I started learning about energy. I was working in a hospital, and I was working in a heavy job. I was doing organ donation and transplantation. So I was working in a lot of grief and loss. And so I was like, I'm going to bring a light into this world because it is very heavy energy, right? Yeah. So I would recognize certain staff or doctors. When I would walk down the hallway, I was literally visualizing my positive energy kind of swirling around me. And I would recognize certain doctors that were more of the negative Nancy types, just kind of more negative. They would see me in the hallway and turn around, like literally run away.
Because they can't deal with it. Yeah.
They were like, oh gosh, here comes this shiny sunshine, person, and I don't want to deal with it. They would literally turn around. But then I recognized other staff would gravitate towards me. They would start giving me compliments, and they would want to be in my energy, and all these things were happening. And I was looking at it as an experiment. So then I was like, all right, I'm going to walk in kind of negative and see what happens. And then I noticed that those negative Nancy doctors would gravitate towards me and the other ones would go away. So I started to really understand, like you said, my energy and how powerful it is, and how you can walk into a room and you can shift the energy polarity, either duality, you can shift it positively or negatively, light or dark, however you want to do it. So I love that you took this, experiment on and were able to compile all of this information. And so you've written several books. So you want to talk about your books and, how these books came about and, how they're out there helping people.
Right. So first up, really, they actually come in reverse order, but the first book is called The Book of Unfinished Feelings. And this was designed to be almost like the journal of the experience of the creation of these meditations. That's in the final stages of proofreading now, so should be coming along soon. And it was very interesting because people kept saying or asking, it's really interesting that you're writing this book. What's it about and when's it coming out? And I said, well, A, I don't know, and B, I'm not sure. It really had no...
You're like, when it's ready.
I was allowing it to be its own thing. And I think the content is so expressive of that idea. It's sort of each meditation taken individually and really exploring the implications, the impact of the thinking around that meditation. And I'll give you one example, which there are so many amazing, fantastic connections and revelations. So much happened during the writing of this book. But funnily enough, this t-shirt I'm wearing today, Wayland Yutani, for anybody in the know, this is a t-shirt that references the film Aliens.
I love it.
Now, it had just arrived in the post, and I'd just written a chapter about saying something nice to somebody else to raise their spirit. Like if we walked around in the world looking for ways to make other people's lives happier, more satisfactory, I think everything would improve if we could harness that as like a collective understanding. My gosh, what a world to live in.
We can visualize that world, James. We can make that happen.
We can do it together.
Even if it's just you and I.
We need a hashtag.
Me
too. So I was out in the world pumping this kind of energy out and really trying to take every opportunity to find some way to do that for other people, to see what I could manifest. And this came in the post. I decided to wear it to pick my son up, I think because I'd been doing some exercise, something I needed to change. I'll just throw this on. Jumped in the car, went over to nursery to pick him up. I was putting him in the car and I could hear someone shouting, and I was like, oh, what's that? And sort of like a spider sense was tingling, sort of like get son into the car, get belt on, let's go. And I could hear it getting louder, and I just sort of at the corner of my eye, I could see someone running towards the car, and I was getting a little bit, what's this about? So I shut the door, and the guy sort of huffing and panting, he came up to me and said, I just had to stop you. And I said, okay. And he said, I just needed to tell you, I really love your t-shirt. And I thought, here is that the very thing that I've been talking about and writing about and trying to manifest for other people. And here is somebody just coming out of the blue and delivering it back to me. And I just thought that is serendipity.
It's
at
like
its finest.
validation
You know,
in its finest.
Unbelievable. And you know what, it did give me a lift. And I thought, yeah, okay, no, great. And I felt better for that experience. And so, yes, it really kind of put a stamp on this idea that if we practice these different ideas, and I think it's impossible to maintain them all the time, but if we have an awareness of just simple little things like that, and we practice them in our lives, I think that can be completely transformative in the way we live and the way we talk to other people and exist around other people, and it can change lives. So
yeah,
that's
I think
not
that's
out
amazing.
yet. That's coming. It's coming soon.
Good. I'm excited for that. I think that's amazing. And I think I've led my life that way. I've always been very complimentary and genuinely complimentary. I'm not like, oh, I'm just going to throw a compliment out there just because I want to. It's a compliment that comes from the heart, you know, and you know, it's really funny because when people compliment me, I get weird. I'm kind of like, oh, I don't know if I can accept this compliment. So I think that's an empath thing too. And I know you talk a lot about, you know, highly sensitive people and empaths, is that we're very good at giving, but when it comes to receiving, we have a little bit of difficulty with that. And I know for me, it's like, oh, I can give compliments to the end of time. But then when someone tries to compliment me, I feel a little out of sorts or a little weird and I want to block it. But now I'm beginning to learn to say, I receive that. I receive your compliment. Thank you so much. And that has changed things in my internal and my external world. And so if there's any of you out there that are struggling with that, start saying, I receive it. That is kind of a way to soften it. So it makes it a little easier for you to take on that energy.
I think what you said there like resonates so highly, because I did unpack that side of it as well. And I think it's worth going deep on the reason why you find it hard to accept the compliment. I think there's a lot of work that someone can do there. But like you said, if you receive it as a gift, then you understand that it validates that other person's giving if you receive it gracefully. And it's like, oh, it's a totally different ball game now. It's like I'm receiving this person has given it generously. I receive it generously.
I love that.
Yeah, it's like an exchange.
It is. And because they want to give too, right? They find joy in the giving. And when we shut it down, it takes away a little bit of their joy, right? And our joy too, I guess. So it's just that beautiful balance of giving and receiving. And many of us, as healers, as empaths, as highly sensitive people, we are very good at giving. Yeah. And that's been a self-reflective lesson for me, is to learn how to receive, because, you know, oftentimes my clients are like, you know, I do this all the time for everyone else and no one ever does it for me. And I'm like, well, when people do it, do you accept it? You know, and no, I guess not. So it's learning that what you the energy you put out into the universe is the energy you're going to receive, almost like a boomerang. So if you're blocking it, then that energy can't flow in, you know, easily.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so you've worked on a few other books too. You want to talk about your other book?
So yes, I have released Liber Affectum, which roughly translates as the book of feelings. So it was the counterpoint to the book of unfinished feelings. And this came about from a very, very strange place. In my work with clients, I realized that there were two things. The number one, a lot of people who are empaths, healers, self-healers, HSPs, anybody with that sort of self-healing work, an interest in it, an understanding of it, it dawned on me that there is a level of appreciation and self-worth validated by helping other people. And a lot of the content that was coming out in my therapeutic sessions with them was stuff that could really help to validate and or challenge the thinking of other people. And my focus is with feelings and feeling words. So I start each session with a single feeling word. I ask my clients to bring a feeling word. And we start there and we talk it out. from there, and we sort of explore what that feeling means and what that feeling is manifesting, almost in a process of kind of fact checking and getting it out in the open to see if that description and that understanding is accurate.
Yeah.
Because so often we have these feelings that are mangled and we don't really understand what's going on inside.
It's like
so
an
that's
onion.
the
It just keeps going deeper and deeper,
it
layer
just
by
keeps
layer.
going and going. And well, maybe it's like 100 onions all chopped up and then thrown together. And it's just, it's chaos, absolute chaos, chaos. So I talked to them to ask whether this is something that we could explore. And unanimously, they felt that if anything that they had said, experienced could help other people, it would be worth putting out into the world. So Liber Effectum is actual transcript from therapeutic sessions where we discuss these feelings and try to work out what the feelings mean and how they connect with us. And it's really hoped. I don't even know what kind of a book it is. It's something that I've certainly never experienced, but I hope that people can pick it up, dip into it, and maybe say, oh, I'm feeling, I don't know, aggravated right now, or maybe I'm feeling envy, and can actually just spend some time inside the feelings of another person. And I think because these pieces of the transcript have come from such kind of a deep place, there's a sense of authenticity to it that I don't think we get from ordinary everyday conversations. So it's almost like peering behind the curtain, if you like, and it's so hard to describe. It's something that's felt rather than, it's emotional rather than intellectual.
I love that. And I think as a society, you always say, what do you think about that? What do you think about that? We don't always say, what do you feel about that? Right? Because when you say, what do you think? We're in our mind. And when you say, when you feel, we're in our hearts. Right. And so it's shifting that, because our thoughts are electric, our emotions are magnetic. And then when we verbalize it, it's like a amplifier. It broadcasts that out. And so, when it comes to manifesting, you want to visualize it and then feel what that would feel like, and then really speak it out into the universe. And so, James, how do we balance our thoughts and our feelings so we can manifest? Do you have any tips or tools to help people, in that? Because many of us, like you talked about earlier, I think we've all, been really heavily in that ego state, which keeps us in our mind. And many of us are dropping now into our hearts. And that's where we have that balance of the masculine and feminine energy as well within each and every one of us. So what are some tips that you have to help balance thoughts and emotions so we can create our desired reality?
Tough one. In my experience, then I think certainly in the work that I do, everything has its roots in an oversimplified internal explanation. Like, we create a definition for a feeling word. So let's take, I don't know, anger or joy, right? Two ends of the spectrum. And we have an idea based on our experience of what these things mean to us. They don't necessarily mean the same thing to somebody else. It has a different context. Another classic example was someone gave me the word alive. And when we broke it apart, it dawned on me that what does it mean to be alive, right? It means something totally different to me, to you, to everybody. This is a very good example. And so the more that we expand our understanding of our simple understanding of what these words mean, I think the more we tap into something higher than ourselves, and it gets back to this unconscious psyche, if we understand the global feeling, if we can encompass or adopt a more broader sense of that feeling within ourselves, then we're not a slave to our reaction to it.
Yeah.
We're more a student of its many possibilities, right?
I love that.
So anger can come up And I can say, oh, wait a minute, I'm feeling really angry. Something's triggered me. But wait, I don't have to be angry.
I don't have to identify with being angry.
Right. I can just feel the anger and I can ask it questions. Why am I angry? What does this mean to be angry? What does anger mean in totality? And then you start to unpack what was a very simple transaction in our brain into something way more considered and careful.
I love that. And it's almost like being the observer of the emotion versus, just allowing the emotion kind of move through you and then seeing if there's other emotions that are, kind of attached to it that go a little deeper. And that's been my experience is they may present with anger, but then we dive deeper and it could be abandonment, rejection, all these other things.
Right.
Yeah. It's like just diving a little bit deeper as to what is that root cause of that emotion. And, and each word and each emotion holds a frequency. So, those heavier emotions of anger, hatred, bitterness, are a lot heavier, emotionally, physically, energetically than say joy, happiness, love, whatnot. So it's like peeling away those layers of those heavier, denser emotions to get to the lighter emotions. But I love that. I love, kind of just not associating with it, but witnessing it consciously, seeing it's there, but not attaching to it. That's awesome.
Right. I think there's there's a secondary level to that as well. And I think, like you said then, if you just say the word anger,
I think red.
We get an emotion. Right. We get like a picture. And I think that will come from years of experience. And so we have like an association with it. But if we can step away from that shortcut that our brain has created, because basically our brain all the time is trying to match shapes to understanding and sounds, and what we recognize just feeds directly into our experience. So if we can get to a point where someone says anger and you think, oh, okay, hurt, or we can take it to a totally different place. We can start to unpack the real reason, like you said, for that emotion.
I love that, because it's funny you said that. It was like you were just reading my mind, because I was thinking when I see someone who's angry, I immediately think that's a very hurt person. They've had a lot of difficulty in their life. There's something that's causing them pain. And so if you can read through the kind of the mask of the emotion, that's presenting itself and get to the meat, it's a whole different ball game, if you can get in there and really dive deeper. And so, understanding that, and not allowing that emotion to take over your thoughts, but to sit with it and to just have a conversation with it, almost like, you're having a conversation with anger. You're like, all right, we're going to talk about this. Why are you here? What are you doing to me? What's the problem? And it's like, just having that connection with it and then saying, okay, I'm ready to let you go now. You're not a part of me anymore. And I love that. I love what you're doing with clients. And I love that you're, also sharing things in your written word. I think that's really meaningful. And I feel the same way. I'm a big writer. I like doing that too. And I'm sure I feel my first book kind of bubbling up here, soon nice. Too. Yeah. And I'm excited for that. And so, James, what are some ways that people can reach out to you if they want to connect with you, or they want to learn more, or they want to, find your books? How can they reach out to you?
Oh, yeah. So my books are at the moment exclusively available on Amazon. So a quick Amazon search of Liber Affectum will bring up the book that's out. And really my entire energy is being channeled into Instagram. And I have been asked, why don't you have a website? And, are you on any other platforms? But honestly, the time investment for those things for me right now just aren't so important. So everything is on Instagram at All We Think We Create. That's where I live. That's my home.
And that's where
so
I found
find
you.
Me on there. Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. So that's it.
You're not the only one. I have a lot of friends who are they don't have websites either. And they are primarily just one social media or the other, and they're doing really well with that. So you've got to go with where you resonate and where you feel. And you've got a lot of really good reels, and you share a lot of really good content. And I think that's why I was drawn, to you, is because, you have these short little clips of very valuable information, for people. So definitely check out James's Instagram page, All We Think We Create. He has a lot of really awesome information on there. And I know I love it. And you're very positive and your energy is very kind of contagious. And I like that.
Thank you.
Think that's important, because as we are shifting our energy of, humanity and of the world, it's really important to check our own energy and see, what energy are we putting out there. And so I really appreciate you coming on the show today, James, and, check out James's books and check out his Instagram page. And thank you so much for coming on today.
Well, it's been a super honor and an absolute pleasure. I've had a great time. Thank you, Tanya.
You deserve to navigate your life as an empath in alignment with health, happiness, and abundance. To learn more about the services that I provide, including Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, EFT Tapping, and the Emotion Code, visit my website at www.thesoulcafe.org.